going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here, and today I have a pretty interesting video. Today we're going to be having Sage Mode Kabuto, probably one of the stronger characters in the verse that I don't know what to say, I haven't seen too many people talk about, but like I just don't see thrown around in discussions as much as you should be. But today with me I got my boy Satori. Say what's up, bro.
Hello everyone, it's Satori coming from a room where it's 500 degrees and I'm burning alive.
And you know, you might recognize him because we did Kakashi and Guy versus the Akatsuki. A lot of you guys seem to enjoy that video, so I thought we'd talk a little different topic. Definitely check that video if you haven't. Check out Satori 2 down below. But essentially, we're going to be throwing Kabuto up against each Hokage in a gauntlet-style video, seeing who he takes a dub against. For the sake of discussion, we'll have each Hokage taking the place of Itachi and Sasuke, but they won't necessarily have to meet the same conditions. Like, there's no they got to stop the Edo Tensei and save the war. It's strictly they just got to beat Kabuto in a fight and just, you know, clip him. So, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you're new here. Enjoy me, enjoy this type of content, enjoy... I don't know, man. Just enjoy life. You know what I mean? So that being said, let's get into the video. So starting off, I want to just establish where Kabuto is strength-wise by giving a bit of a spark notes on how strong he is, generally speaking. There's a lot of stuff to go over at Kabuto. He's actually very diverse in terms of abilities and whatnot. But I'll start off with this. Like pre-Sage mode, he shouldn't be stronger than Orochimaru. The data book pretty much states this, that he only surpasses Orochimaru when he reaches Sage mode. So to say like he'd be like stronger than him would kind of be, I don't know, it'd be inconsistent. On top of this, like even the small portions of Orochimaru's chakra and Anko were like buffing him quite a bit. Like they were making his hold on the Edo Tensei that much more potent. It was like dramatically increasing the binding strength. And even this small portion of Orochimaru's chakra when he was revived, like he still didn't have the strength like to fight anybody. He actually had to reabsorb his chakra from Kabuto. So, you know, it isn't that much. So to kind of like with all this in mind, it doesn't really seem that likely that, you know, he'd be stronger than Orochimaru pre-Snake Sage mode. Now, post-Snake Sage mode, Kabuto is pretty interesting. Do you want to start off with this? What's your thoughts on it once he attains Sage mode?
So once he attains Sage mode, he 100% surpasses Orochimaru, because Orochimaru comes out in his strongest form, gets bodied by blind Itachi. And then Kabuto comes out in Sage mode and starts fighting Edo Itachi with support from EMS Sasuke. And they're definitely very comparable in that fight. Yeah. They're both reacting to each other's attacks. And Kabuto is actually able to get the better of Itachi at a couple points in that battle, mostly through like surprise attacks and slippery movements.
Yeah.
And that's part of his arsenal. That's part of what makes him so dangerous is his like hacks and all these slippery moves he can do. Where like he travels through his snakes, he has precog, he has like danger sensing almost, and he has all these like hacks resistances too. He's resistant to most poisons, he's resistant to genjutsu, at least visual genjutsu, and he has all these like sound 4 abilities that he can throw out, so he's definitely a tough match to go up against. And personally, I believe that like Nagato as an Edo, Itachi as an Edo, and Kabuto in Sage mode are very comparable, and they're like in the same tier.
Yeah.
And we've seen what Nagato and Itachi can do. They like body people.
Yeah. They're like definitive tiers above everybody else. So I think they're very comparable. And I 100% agree. Like if I was going to do a tier list, like I'd literally have like Kabuto, Itachi, Nagato, and you could swap them around however you want. I'm just saying like stat-wise, like generally speaking, they are comparable. Who you have like above who isn't necessarily like relevant for this discussion, because the Kabuto fight itself, I'm going to discuss this in another video, but this fight, you know, you can interpret a number of ways, and there's a lot of restrictions in this fight, generally speaking, and a lot of portrayals. Like, for example, like, Itachi and Sasuke don't look that impressive due to, like, how they're fighting, for example. They're fighting very defensively. So it's like, you know, there's a whole number of ways, but just on a general basis, they're very comparable. I think that's generally what we're getting at, and I agree. And you mentioned he has all the Sound 4 abilities, plus Kimimaru. They're all amped because he's using Sage mode. Something interesting as well is his regeneration is just on a whole nother tier. Probably one of the, I would argue, probably best regeneration aside from Hashirama's within the series, or like Ten Tails characters. It's pretty crazy. He has like, he studied Karen's regeneration. He has like Suigetsu's hydrification. He has Orochimaru's body replacement. And basically this just makes it so he can like liquefy like his, if he ever gets tagged, like he can liquefy through it. He can also gather nature energy while in this liquefied state. He can just body replacement, you know, just blatantly regen. He can do all this crazy stuff, which really makes it that he's honestly one of the hardest characters to kill in the series. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, this guy was consistently getting like slashed through by Susanoo swords and he was fine. Like, it was never an issue. And Orochimaru does share that as well. So regen is no joke. Any thoughts on the regeneration? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the hardest characters to kill. I would argue much harder than Orochimaru, because one thing about Karin that I've never ever seen brought up is that when she goes against Guru Zetsu, she actually gets like a wood style jutsu, like just go through her spine.
Yeah.
And like destroy her core completely. Like her midsection was gone. Like her spine was just destroyed. And then she just like bites herself in the arm and regenerates from that. And Kabuto studied this Karin and likely made her regeneration even better on himself.
It's absurd.
It's actually insane.
It's absolutely absurd. And then, you know, you have all this great stuff like with his sensory capabilities, whatnot. He even has some of Orochimaru's powers, like you see he has like the snake form and whatnot. So he's very strong. He also has a couple different summons. We're not going to talk about Edo Tensei right this second. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in a different matchup because that does come in. We're actually going to give him Edo Tensei against some fighters and see how he does. But what is interesting is he also has like Manda clones he can summon, stronger than the original Mandas, which also make it that he can mitigate like large scale summons and combat them. Like he has answers for stuff like that. You know, and the Sannin summons are absolutely no joke at all. So that's obviously pretty substantial. But you know, crazy regen, all these hacks abilities. Snake Sage mode amping his stats. Realistically in character he just runs up and chakra blades people, and this is all really just stacked with his insane intellect, which has been displayed pretty consistently throughout the series. So overall just pretty godly, I'd say. He's very strong. I would argue, we were kind of talking about this, I don't want to say like top 5 pre-Six Paths characters, but we were saying like he borders that, you know what I mean? Like he's one of like the if we go top 5, like he might be 7, maybe 6. 6 might be debatable, but like 7 or 8. So he's very strong. Like he's definitely close up there. Where how far up you get him is a little bit interpretation based. So starting off, we have against Tsunade. Now this fight can go a couple of different ways. I'm gonna be honest, he can run a battle of attrition and straight up fatigue her to the point her 100 healings diminishes and blatantly defeats her. That's a win con. Kitsuyu makes no difference because Kabuto has his own stake summons to combat them. And he does have a definitive speed advantage. A lot of Tsunade's speed feats against Madara, in my opinion, aren't that usable. Like, you can use them. It's just very iffy because you kind of have to determine like what Madara kind of lets her slide with in that fight. On top of the fact that Madara in character just lets people like bash against his Susanoo while he like lets them attack him. So I'll say that, but honestly, a lot of Kabuto's like initial hacks, like for example, the white extreme attack, which is very potent, especially in the cave, is just going to be detrimental to it. It's going to like, it pretty much shatters, like it makes her bones ring, blinding, deafening. It's going to be a real big GG, and it's going to allow him to run up and chakra blade her. And whether or not you think he'll be able to tag her or even like breach her durability, like, cause she does have some durability cause she tanks like a 3-beated Yusakamagatana beat from Madara Susanoo. Whether or not you think that isn't too relevant, but the fact that he's just going to have all these mitigating hacks is really going to be enough for him to find some way to take her down. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like the Madara feats are just not valid, because Madara himself even says later on to Zetsu that he's just toying with the Kage, wanting to see how strong they are.
Yeah.
So I don't think that can be used for scaling Tsunade. And I also think we've already seen this fight sort of happening when they were both a lot weaker. And the main takeaway from that is that Kabuto does have like medical attacks that can disrupt like vital points of people and like disrupt muscle tandems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So even if you think Tsunade for some reason has like god tier durability and like Kabuto can just run up to her and slice her in half, he could still do internal damage. And he's got a ton of stamina. He's got pretty much like near infinite stamina because he can just continuously absorb sage energy. Plus all the other hacks like Kimimaro's webbing and like summoning snakes to bind her and like Kimimaro's bones and stuff like that. Like he's just way too versatile and way too fast for Tsunade.
He has no way to take him down. Like if she's not able to kill Orochimaru, she's not going to be able to kill somebody with body replacement plus all these other things. You could argue he could even liquefy through her physical blows and like, you know, how that could go. So her physical strength really doesn't make the difference. Like the only thing you could maybe say is that like she'll like do like the heaven kick of pain and like break the cave down, which might mitigate some of Kabuto's like sage arts, like inorganic reanimation. But even then, that isn't necessarily like a make it or break it point, in my opinion, just because of how much of a nuanced arsenal. She doesn't have any answer for like, paralyzing genjutsu or anything like that. Maybe you could argue she could Kai release out of it, since like Tsunade and Sakura, like via their teachings, do have really good chakra control. I think that's a fair enough point. But generally speaking, he just has a lot to take her down and just mitigates a lot of what she does.
Yeah. And for her hitting Kabuto, like she's never hitting Kabuto.
Yeah.
Because like even Naruto, who's like weaker than Kabuto in base, or should be weaker, can react to the third Raikage in Sage mode. So I feel like Kabuto would have no trouble with Tsunade.
Yeah. And like, he's just stronger than like arguably the strongest Sani. You know what I mean? I feel like it's pretty definitive.
Alright, so moving over to Hiruzen next, he's a weird one to scale because in part 1 he doesn't seem that powerful, but in the war he's actually able to do some pretty insane stuff like stalemating Guru Guru Zetsu, and also reacting to truth-seeking orbs from Jubito. Granted, he does get tagged, but he like moves his head out of the way, so that's something, that's Jubito.
Yeah, I mean.
But other than that, he's not really that crazy. His arsenal of jutsu can mostly be blocked by stuff like Earth Style and countered by Water Style and other things that Kabuto has at his disposal. And like some people try to argue that he's like faster than Tobirama because he like got to Naruto first. Like, what's your take on that?
Oh, I've never agreed with that. Just because like we don't know. I've talked about this before. I don't even know if I brought this up on the channel, but we don't know at what point Hiruzen was moving while he was off panel. That's the main thing. Like we don't know. Like he could have been much closer to Naruto. He could have been coming in. Like we don't see any of that. All we see is him appear. So to make that leap isn't really fair in my opinion. I think, listen, against like Hiruzen and Tobirama, I think if you're gonna argue like the prime Hiruzen stuff and saying he's stronger than Tobirama, I think that's entirely fine because he has a more innate talent than Tobirama. And he lived longer, so you could argue like he would have realized like his full potential and trained enough to where like he would have surpassed him. I think that's fine if you were going with more like a lore prime Hiruzen argument. But like old man Hiruzen, even like the large scale jutsu he did against Giriguru might not happen just due to his chakra reserves at this point not being that well. He can make shadow clones, but it's too much. It's too taxing on his reserves. The only answer he really has at this point, in my opinion, is a potential like Edo Tensei GG, but like. Even then, you'd have to argue he'd actually like, grab on to Kabuto to it. I will concede, however, because this is relevant in a future matchup. If he does grab him with Reaper Dead Seal, you can make a case that like that starts a tug of war because Orochimaru notes that he can't initiate any jutsu. And if he could have like, thrown his old body out and like hopped out of his mouth during that exchange, he would have. But he just like the Reaper Dead Seal like pretty much mitigates that. So, if we did grant you, he like tags Kabuto, he, maybe, but honestly, he doesn't have an answer for a lot of what Kabuto does in this fight. And again, like, if you argue, I'm not going to get into Hiruzen versus Orochimaru too much, but if you argue, like, they're relative, that would also just paint Kabuto as superior, as even, like, Hiruzen's lore isn't really giving him any edge. This being older Hiruzen, a more prime Hiruzen could be argued. People really don't understand that, like, Kabuto at a certain point in the war was planning on taking Obito on and did want the Rinnegan. Like, he knows, like, taking on the Rinnegan here won't help me. So it's like, he is trying to contend with some of the higher tiers in the verse. Like, he's a different breed at this point. So we're gonna get into the next matchup. He should take a pretty confident W against Tsunade and Hiruzen. I think Tsunade and Hiruzen are pretty like comparable in strength too, but obviously I do think Hiruzen is stronger. So we'll move on from that. Next up, we have base Minato Alive. For the sake of arguments, we'll just say like village attack Minato just to give some consistency here. But Minato is interesting because I think he is very relevant like speed wise here. I don't necessarily think like Kabuto should be like perception blitzing him or anything like that, but it's interesting, right? Because we gotta argue like this fight starts out like it did, where they're both on opposite sides of the cave. I could definitely see a situation where like Minato just straight up throws kunais everywhere. That's very in character for Minato. He'll litter the battlefield with kunais. He doesn't in the war. He doesn't against the Raikage. He has kunais everywhere against Obito. You could just argue like he didn't do that because he was always planning on returning to the village anyway. But even then, like he'll throw a kunai in the back just so he has somewhere to teleport to. So that's very interesting. Now, the weird thing with Minato is like, okay, so let's say this, right? Let's say the fight starts out with like Kabuto like using the white extreme attack, like the dragon, the ugly dragon from Adventure Time, the one that grants wishes, that pulls up and like spins around and stuff like that. What's your take? Like, what do you think happens if he white extreme attacks Minato?
I feel like it shouldn't really be an end to the battle because we've seen that Itachi can activate a jutsu while under the effects of the extreme attack, because he can activate a Susanoo, and Susanos we know are taxing on the body. So if he can activate like a full avatar and like extend a hand to grab Sasuke to protect him, I feel like in the time that Kabuto takes to get to Minato in this scenario, Minato would have time to teleport to one of the tags, and he would just like last out the attack.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to say why he wouldn't be able to do that.
The only argument I've heard, and you know, one thing to bring up is like Sasuke says he can't maintain the Susanoo, but you could argue like maintaining something is like more difficult than like activating the jutsu for some reason. Like it'd be weird to like, it's kind of a weird argument, but that is what happens. One of the other arguments I've heard is because Itachi's an Edo Tensei, the effects from the white extreme attack were mitigated. I think this is like fair enough. My only issue with that is that we do know off Hanzo that Edo Tenseis feel pain. And we do see that Itachi is like he's being blinded by it. And he's covering his ears because, you know, it's blinding, bone rattling noise. It is a very potent attack. So you kind of have to argue like, okay, does maybe because he doesn't have like bones, does this attack not work? But then you have Hanzo who like retains his poison sac from when he was alive. You know what I mean? Like it's a little weird of a slippery slope. Like, so if you were to say like Edo Tenseis like have the attack nulled, I don't think that's an outlandish take. I just think, you know, I think it's similar. Like, I don't think it's like that much of a difference. Also, I'll say like the Flying Raijin should take less effort to activate than the Susanoo just due to how Minato doesn't have to weave hand signs. He can just teleport.
Yeah.
He can even teleport while getting Kamui'd. So it'd be weird to say like if he's already shown like I will say Kamui's like treated as like an instant death in the series, and like most characters while they're getting Kamui'd are like kind of paralyzed almost. We've only seen like very few characters like Conan, for example, who haven't like abided by that rule. And even then, like it's a little weirder because like all her papers getting sucked in. We don't exactly know where she is. She's like in Obito's wrist. So it's a little weird to say, but I think the bottom line is we're getting is that Minato should be able to teleport away from it. Now, even though Minato should be able to like teleport away from a bunch of attacks, like you know, inorganic reanimation, that could be an interesting one. Even then Itachi reacts to that. Or he reacts but doesn't react fast enough to like block himself. The reason I've always said that he's able to react to that and Sasuke wasn't is that he had his Mangekyo Sharingan out, whereas Sasuke actually had his base Sharingan out, which would hinder his perception capabilities. But like, you know, it was more of a surprise attack, so you know, you could argue that around, but that is still a very potent option. You could maybe argue that. The real underlying issue with Minato in this fight is that he doesn't have a substantial way to put down Kabuto's regeneration. Do you want to talk about this?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
He does not. So, the best thing for Minato scaling is the statement about him having like the same destructive force as like Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. And then people also try to argue that he could like pierce the Raikage's lightning armor. But the thing about that is like, why would that like imply that he could actually do it? Because B might just want to like get his brother out of the way just in case, you know, like maybe this guy can pierce it, maybe he can't.
I've argued that.
Like we don't know, because and then him piercing the tentacle is just a non-feat. Like everybody's slicing those tentacles. Like Shuriken from Obito can slice up those tentacles. Like it's not a feat.
Exactly.
Yeah, but regardless of that, even if you somehow say like Minato is just like a god and can just slice Kabuto apart, Kabuto, like we said before, has regeneration where, like, most likely superior to Karin's. Karin can regenerate her entire spine from being completely decimated.
Yeah.
And then we've also seen Orochimaru, like, when he gets sliced in half by Naruto, he can just summon, like, snakes from his body and just join himself back together. So, like, Kabuto should probably be able to do the same thing. So, decapitation or, like, slicing him in half won't really do much. You know, maybe you could argue...
Yeah, my bad. I gotta add to this real quick. It's like, I wanted to add to the Orochimaru, like, regen train. A lot of people, like, give him, shit for getting slapped around by Itachi. But something that is interesting is that he does think he can take the Susanoo a little bit. But, like, because he's, like, he gets stabbed by it. And before he knows it's a Totsuka blade, he's like, did you think this puny attack could kill me? So, like, Susanoo's sword swings aren't endangering him. And like even a more one-to-one example is when Kabuto like is meeting Orochimaru and like slashes his neck. He like jumps on him and starts like chakra blading his neck multiple times. His body's unrecognizable, and then Orochimaru just hops out. So it's like I just want to agree with you. Like decapitation is just not in the cards. I don't think it's gonna be a win con here.
I feel like the only thing you might be able to argue is if he like slices Kabuto's head in half or something and like
Yeah.
chops his brain up, but I don't know. I don't think he can.
Yeah, yeah.
And even for speed with Minato, it's a bit complicated, but there are like 5 different statements that he's like Raikage KCM1 level speed. Like there are like 5 statements for that.
Yeah.
And even if you argue that like with body flicker he might be like full Ninetales speed, that's still that full Ninetales gets reacted, well, not full, half the Ninetales gets reacted to by Sage Naruto
Yeah.
during their fight. So it's really not that impressive. And even if you somehow argue that like his body flicker is faster than the other Kages, and maybe he has to like run through trees so his reaction speed should scale to that or something. Even though that's pretty inconsistent lore-wise, because body flicker is supposed to be like above a person's actual speed.
Yeah.
But even if you argue that, and you argue he like slices Kabuto apart, Kabuto can just regen. Like eventually, like Minato's just gonna run out of stamina.
Yeah, yeah, he's literally just gonna like liquefy, separate himself, continuously gather nature energy, and at some point, like maybe to his flute genjutsu, because Kabuto can like stack abilities and like fight very quickly, like he can move and like use the sound for his abilities. Like something's gonna hit that's gonna hinder Minato's movement, and the Chiyo flute genjutsu is a very potent one. We'll talk about that more in a little bit because we have our own like stances on that. But like that is a paralyzing genjutsu. In which case, you could make a decent chance, like, it'll give Kabuto the edge. Or, he out-staminas Minato, because Minato's, like, Rasengan variants or kunai slashes aren't going to be enough. One of the better win cons for Minato, I will acknowledge, Reaper Dead Seal is a possibility. Now, I don't want to say, like, oh, he's, like, able, because he does suppress, like, half the Ninetales. But, it's an impressive feat. I just don't want people to ignore the fact that Kushina was also, like, holding down the Ninetales and making it easier on Minato. Like, it's not like Minato just runs up to the Ninetales, slaps it on the ass, and is like, yo, let me get half that. And the Kushina's literally suppressing it with her chakra chain. So it's like, that is prevalent here. Now, there is a possibility. Maybe you could argue he makes some clones and does get a Reaper Dead Seal on Kabuto. In which case, one, that's going to be a tug of war, and two, that only amounts to a draw.
And then another thing for the Ninetales feat, we don't actually know if the Ninetales can resist being soul pulled or not. Because, like, he does later on in the story against Naruto. But in that moment, it's just sort of painted as, like, a in-the-moment thing, like a snap where he just gets, like, half his soul pulled out. So, like, could he even resist? Did he even have a chance to resist it, actually? Like, is it actually a feat for Minato? Or is it just something that the Ninetales wasn't able to, like, comprehend in time? And then just got half of him ripped out of him, like, without resistance at all.
Yeah, and it's weird, right? Because even when he resisted, like, Naruto, like, is still getting aided by Kushina, ironically, like, in that fight. And then, like, he's, like, pulling Ninetales back. So it's like, it's really interesting. So, the Ninetales feat is impressive. I just don't want to sit here and say, like, he's going to run up to, like, half these fighters and, like, for free, like Reaper Dead Seal, because it is a draw at best.
Yeah, and then when people say he has other sealing jutsu too, I've seen people argue that. They say like he can seal the full Ninetales without the Reaper Death Seal, where he just blatantly states that the Ninetales is like too large of a chakra to seal away fully.
Yeah.
Like in one fell swoop. He even says like, oh my god, this chakra is so heavy, like when he absorbs just half of it into his body.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then if you want to argue that, like, for some reason, Minato would have to have, like, as much chakra as the Ninetales to be able to, like, play tug of war with it, that would make baby Naruto, like, have, like, Ninetales chakra levels. Because, like, Minato's saying, like, Minato's, like, saying, oh my god, this chakra is heavy. Meanwhile, baby Naruto just, like, takes it in his body and, like, nothing happens.
That might just be like, the Uzumaki blood, because they're nutty, bro. They're brawling.
Yeah, but, like, does baby Naruto have Kurama levels of chakra now?
What I mean?
Just based off that?
You know what I mean? It's a thing for the philosophers. But, no, I'm joking. But I think the bottom line here is that, like, Minato doesn't really, and we're not saying Minato has low stamina, because he really doesn't. We're not judging that off of him. Because the only people who say that is like people who like are looking at the fight and looking at he's teleporting large Bijou bombs of full Ninetales around. We're not saying any of that. But like a lot of stuff really isn't relevant. Even if we gave him Sage Mode, we don't know how much it amps him. His Sage Mode literally has no feats. All it really does is allow him to take like a kick from Madara. which like, you know, and then his sage mode runs out. And like, I've always been of the opinion like Minato, I know people say he's humble, but his sage mode cannot last that long. Like, just because he's a humble person does not mean like he's lying when he says things. You know what I mean? They're not mutually exclusive. You could be humble and tell the truth. And it doesn't mean he's downplaying himself. If he says his sage mode can't last, and even Kakashi like notes it, he's like, yo, your sage mode really isn't that great, sensei. So, you know, maybe it can help him evade Kabuto and like prolong the fight, but we don't know how long it takes him to charge it. We don't see how long he's charging it off panel. All we see is when the eyes appear on him. So I don't really think sage mode makes that much of a difference either in this fight.
Yeah, because he's like standing still for a good few pages before that, maybe even a couple chapters. And even after he activates it, he goes in to attack Jubidara, gets blitzed, and then gets kicked away. And then the next moment, his sage mode just runs out.
Yeah.
So, like, did it even last like 5 seconds? Like,
it's ridiculous, and it would be like it's not comparable. So we think Kabuto takes a pretty confident W in this one, but this is like I would argue like it's gonna be a more this is gonna be an interesting fight because it's like this isn't the type of fighter he's used to or has fought. So I think it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I feel like it would definitely be really interesting. These guys are both very intelligent, so like seeing Kishimoto actually write this fight would have been really cool. But just one more thing to quickly cement Kabuto as the winner. He can, like, whenever Minato spreads kunais throughout the battlefield, Kabuto can just cover them in webs, bones, like shift them away with reanimation, inorganic reanimation. Like, he can just create so many obstacles around them. And like, if Minato doesn't notice that one of his kunai has been like trapped almost, like he could teleport into a bone and like just pierce himself.
Yeah.
Like
I
it's
agree.
just not going well for Minato here.
If the Raikage can like mark every location that Minato like throws a kunai, and the cave where like Kabuto has like the most distinct advantage and like his sensory capabilities are buffed tenfold, and he has like way better intelligence feats than the fourth Raikage, combat and like jutsu development. I feel like he'd also be able to like see where all the kunai are and just like, you know, dash around the cave and do his thing just like you mentioned. So I agree. I don't even think like necessarily like him teleporting around. I think the longer this fight goes on, Minato's chances of winning dramatically decrease from like whereas beginning is probably his best bet, and you have to argue like an out of character win con, which is run up Reaper Death Seal, and that's it.
Yeah. And even the Raikage is like, if I can just notice all the kunai, and if I can see where he teleports to, I can actually like run up to him and like deck him in the face. And like, he's actually confident even after seeing Minato like teleport behind him that he can still fight Minato. It's just that when Minato teleports behind B, like he wasn't expecting that.
Absurdity. So we lean towards Kabuto for this W. Next up, we have Alive Tobirama. Now,
my boy,
the god, not playing, but we like Tobirama over here. And that, by the way, we like Minato too. It's just like, you know, it base Minato and Tobirama are very different fighters. They like people try and like they're very similar, but they also have very distinctly very distinct arsenals. We're gonna talk about this for a second because not a lot of people understand that like Tobirama mains like crazy water style, like a lot of lore suggestions that he just like he's folding like Hiruzen's flame bomb, prize jutsu. The anime profiles talks about it being like the strongest fire style, like, and I know it's water versus fire, but the jutsu potency does matter, and he does do a lot of water style in the war, but the reason he doesn't is because it's mitigated against Jubito, because regular ninjutsu is just useless, so he wouldn't just waste jutsu like against a fighter where it doesn't have any effect. So he is very proficient with flying Raijin. He just doesn't main it and like decapitate people off rip like Minato does. He still does do that, but it's just like he just doesn't like have mark kunai. He has to manually mark his kunai. He just doesn't do a lot of the same strategies. He doesn't have the ceiling. But he has like a lot. He has a lot of like really nuanced stuff. He has like the shadow clones, tandem paper bombs, Edo Tensei, bringer of darkness, Genjutsu. Now I'll start off by saying this is very similar to Minato, where you could argue he has like the speed necessary to combat Kabuto. The main issue here is because like Tobirama is the exact same boat. His water style is not going to be enough to permanently put down Kabuto. It doesn't have nearly any potency showings to suggest as much. Bringer of Darkness Genjutsu offers no support because Kabuto can fight while blind and liquefying his insides. So it's like none of that really matters. And the problem is with the live Tobirama, right? Like even though he has these stats, like, you know, we covered like the decapitation stuff earlier. With the live Tobirama, it's very implied that like he has done tandem paper bombs while alive, because Hiruzen directly notes it. The issue is that, you know, some people argue that he does them without Edo Tensei. I think that's fine. I'm going to be more conservative and say he just needs the Edo Tensei to use them in this case. If you argue that, right, you have a weird situation because he summoned some Edo Tensei, in which case, right, could Kabuto potentially like rewrite the tag in Tobirama's Edo Tensei? Because like Itachi's now his own entity, right? He's not binded to Kabuto or anything like that. And like Kabuto thinks like Kabuto's trying to rewrite the tag in his head. So it's kind of like, okay, could Kabuto like run up and like jam the tag in the head of Tobirama's Edo Tensei? Because as far as we know, he doesn't have like any shinobi worth note like that he can use Edo Tensei for. So it's like you just have to argue like there's some random shinobi from the Warring States period, or just some thought. Like for example, you can maybe argue like he Edo Tensei shinobi while as they die on the battlefield or something like that. In which case, like if the Edo Tensei aren't relevant to Kabuto in terms of speed, you could actually argue he might just be able to roll up and just like put the kunai in their head and just like take them over and turn them against Tobirama, which would be pretty funny. In which case it makes it a lot harder for tandem paper bombs to work. What's your opinion on Tobirama? I know I talked for a minute, but talk to me.
Yeah, so I do agree that Kabuto definitely does have the option of rewriting the tags. But the thing about Tobirama is that I feel like he's just such a blitz tier above Kabuto, because I personally view Tobirama in very high regard in terms of speed. I don't think he's like speed blitzing Jubito or anything as some people do, but I do think he's at bare minimum like KCM2 speed or above that.
Yeah.
And I think he's like quite far above that, honestly, because like his reaction speed is insane. He's like outspeeding everybody whenever he's on screen.
He's always got solid showings. And this isn't to like make this like about Minato versus Tobirama or anything like that, but it's just like whenever the fact that he's able to stay relevant against Jubito and his teleportation isn't instantly getting negged. Like he's able to teleport shadow clones, grab you know, Bijou bombs. Like these are very good feats. This isn't like just for him as an individual. So, you know, with that being said, I wanted to add to that because I generally agree. Like Tobirama has some very good feats in the war arc. He's all the Hokage are just presented as juggernauts in the war. But continue.
And then another thing is like Madara actually views him as a threat. He says like, "You two brothers, there's a reason you can't regain your power. Fate is smiling upon me." And he's not like mocking him or anything. He's like actually like complimenting Tobirama.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the whole Tobirama stuff now, but like the thing is basically what I'm getting at is that I think Tobirama would be fast enough to notice what Kabuto is trying to do and like blitz in front of him and like just slap him in the face, like redirect him away from the Edo Tensei while perform the tandem paper bombs and then just teleport out of the way. And I don't really think Kabuto is surviving the tandem paper bombs if they do go off. Because, like, do you want to go into that?
Oh,
with the
man!
paper bombs?
All right, let me talk about this. So we were talking about this before the call. A lot of people have heard, like, the whole thing with, like, the tandem paper bombs, like, blowing up the deity gate that was, like, alive, or, like, able to stay struck. Like, it was fine after getting hit by a 10 Tails Beast Bomb. You know, I've talked about this in the past. Like, you could argue maybe the dates only scale when something's under them. But if you don't say that, right? Or even if you were to, like, ignore that, Jubito actually felt the need to block the tandem paper bombs, like because after they go off, he actually has like you see like the truth-seeking shield like dissipating. So it's like okay, this attack was threatening enough to where like he felt like he actually had to like block it. And by the way, this is unstable Jubito. This is the dude who like cognitive thought isn't really like apparent or he's not fully in control, and like he's able to like misfire on himself. So the fact that this is the case is like a really good showing for Tobirama. So the bottom line, right? And this is kind of like a distinction between Alive and Edo Tobirama. It's like, how quickly do you think he could get the tandem paper bombs off, if at all? Because the difference between Alive and Edo Tobirama, I guess I'll like fuse them in this case. But it's like Edo, this happens immediately, and Kabuto really doesn't have a good answer. And he doesn't have the feats to say he would potentially be able to regen off of them. So if you were to argue Edo, definitely an easier time, whereas Alive, the only reason I would say is still debatable is because it would require a little bit more prep for the tandem paper bombs to take place, if that makes sense. So I think Alive Tobirama is pretty debatable, whereas Edo, because Edo's very in character for him to just like punch a hole in his chest and like rip out the bombs and like start it up. This kind of just turned into Tobirama in general, but I'll put it like this: Alive, somewhat debatable. Edo's pretty definitive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. Because Tobirama is a character who, in character, just goes for the kill, like, a lot of the time. Like, he sees Jubito come out, he
Yeah.
instantly pulls out the paper bombs.
Yeah.
He sees Madara winning, he instantly tries to go for a killing shot to his back. Like, he's just always going for the kill. He's like that guy. He's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
on edge. He will kill you. Like,
Yeah. It's
he has
honestly
no qualms with that.
it really
And like,
yeah.
yeah, and like Jubito, when he pulls out those those like shields, he's like acting on instinct. He's like basically an animal at that point.
Yeah.
And he's like feels the need to pull out these like shields,
Crazy.
which he then later on pulled out to defend himself from 4 Jubi bombs going off.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's like, so like, and I'll say this in terms of Alive, like, the reason I would also say that Alive struggles a bit is because, like, Kabuto can also paralyze the Edo Tenseis. So he could potentially, like, stop them from initiating the tandem paper bombs, even if an Obito initiates it. Like, he could paralyze them, White Extreme Attack, Inorganic Reanimation. Like, there's a couple things he can do to mitigate that from happening. And if Tobirama doesn't get them off, like, yeah, you could argue he's faster, but then, like, he's in a base Minato situation where, like, what's he gonna do? He's not gonna be able to really take down Kabuto. So
Yeah.
it's really somewhat dependent on that. But the bottom line is that Edo is pretty definitive, whereas like Alive, like there is a lot of wiggle room in a discussion to be had, because he's very similar to Minato on that boat. So that's general
Yeah.
thoughts on Tobirama, but tandem paper bombs are pretty definitive if he gets that off.
I would agree. I would lean toward Tobirama in both scenarios, but I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like, Kabuto does have some wiggle room with the
Yeah.
live Tobirama.
Yeah, it's like just dependent on like how like Kishimoto writes the fight, to be honest. Next up, we have Kyuubi Minato, or like Edo Minato. Now, I'm gonna preface this as well. The reason like we can just like the Edos also will make a slight difference is if you think like being an Edo dulled the effects of the White Extreme Attack, because then that's mitigated here. But I'm gonna be honest, I think Kyuubi Minato slams. I think he body bags Kabuto for a couple
Yep.
reasons. We were talking like so. Ignoring the speed, because he's like an animal. Ignoring how he's like relative to like Bijou Sage Mode Naruto, which is like bruh. All that stuff. He can do giant Rasengans, Bijou bombs, all that stuff. Potentially Sage Mode stacked with KCM. Not gonna say that, but should be able to. But with all that stuff, all that crazy. I'm not gonna apply it either because it's not shown. But like, hey, it's cool. But with all that crazy stuff, right? There's a couple things I want to stretch. A lot of Kabuto's hacks in this fight are mitigated. We were talking about this, right? If Minato starts the fight and just goes into his avatar, so much of Kabuto's arsenal just doesn't work. So like, for example, right? We were talking about the White Extreme Attack, Jutsu Activation. On top of that potentially being a case, the reason the White Extreme Attack is so potent is because it's in a close area, right? It's like a closed space. If, let's say like Minato like initiates the QB avatar and breaks the cave, even if Kabuto shoots out the White Extreme Attack, Minato's going to be farther away from when the like flashbang goes off. So he's not going to be as blinded from it because he's far away. He's not going to be as rattled from it, like from his his hearing's not going to be as impaired because the noise is going to be farther back. So that's going to be tougher. And like it's arguable if the avatar would even get like blown away. Inorganic reanimation. A lot of people don't bring this up. The reason it's so strong in the cave is because like the cave's like all covered in stalagmites, which makes it so he can almost make the attack like omnidirectional. He can do it anywhere, but like if he does it in an open field, it's not going to be like as potent in my opinion. Like even Kabuto implies this. Like that's kind of the reason he chose the cave. Like he's like, oh, and then Itachi thinks he's talking about traps, but he's like, nah, bro, watch this. So there's also that. And inorganic reanimation is not piercing the QB avatar. I'm sorry, it's just not. Like they're rocks. He can't harden them, but we have no showings for that, and it's not piercing the Susanoo arm. So I don't necessarily think it's piercing the QB, like the full QB avatar. So on top of all that, right, a lot of Kabuto's hacks are mitigated. Genjutsu doesn't work because Minato has Kurama to bust him out. What do you think about QB Minato? What does he do against Kabuto? Talk to him, bro. Tell them what he does.
Okay, so the thing you have to realize is that KCM2 Naruto, with just his base chakra, not using any like arms or anything, just his base chakra, could blow away 5 Bijou bombs at the same time. He
slaps them away, like bow.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen here is Minato in KCM is gonna start walking toward Kabuto. Kabuto is going to try his like extreme attack, Genjutsu. Kurama's gonna snap him out of that, and then Kabuto's gonna try to throw webs and bones and rocks. They will all just bounce off of Minato's body. And then Minato was going to walk slowly toward Kabuto, like Broly.
Yeah.
And then grab his face and probably like crush him and with like a massive Rasengan or like a Bijou Bomb or like a Kurama Avatar Rasengan.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be the end of the fight. Like, I'm sorry.
It's bad. Like we were talking about this. Like Kabuto's like regen has shown no signs of like coming back from like being atomized by a tail beast bomb. Even like users of it, like Suigetsu, who like liquefied through everything. And this might just be partly due to the fact that it's like raw chakra versus like a substantiated attack, but like he's not able to do it versus the 8-tails. Even Orochimaru concedes that he can't body replacement out of or like, you know, regen past like a 4-tails beast bomb. And this is like the full Kyuubi avatar who's like bodying basically the equivalent of like 5-tail beasts. They equal out. So
arguably while holding back.
Arguably while holding back. So it's like, no, this is not like up for discussion. And it's like, so the Kyuubi avatar really is too much for Kabuto at this point. You just have to be kind of generous, and in which case, you know, Minato can play long range. He can mitigate. He doesn't really have to fight on Obito's terms, or not Obito, Kabuto's terms. Like you could argue, like he even like jumps up and does like a mini tail beast bomb barrage on Kabuto. Kabuto's very strong, but like he's one of those fighters that just doesn't have like the overwhelming avatars or like like his hacks are strong, but they're not like Kamui or anything like that. You know what I mean? So it's not to that same degree. So we think Kyuubi Minato does clear pretty low diff as well. Not want to say low diff. That feels like kind of disingenuous, but like he should take a pretty confident W. Anything you want to add?
No, I feel like low diff might actually be giving Kabuto a bit too much credit in this fight.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I like Kabuto. He's like my top 20 favorite characters in the show. But like, what's he doing here? Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know that shot of like Jigen looking up at the Kurama avatar from Boruto? That's what's gonna happen. And then he's just gonna get stepped on.
Yeah. And like for people to understand like why the speed disparity is here either, like Sasuke's arguably mental debuffed, or he gets stronger from this fight. I think he gets stronger, but that's just me. You know, hatred increase, whatever. But you know, aside from all that, right? He goes through some changes, whether you know he's holding back or not. He gets like speed blitzed by unstable Jubito close range. Like Jubito's physical movements are faster than his trucing orbs. He gets his like face grab, same with Naruto. Then like Naruto adds on like KCM2 plus Sage mode, and Minato can keep pace. So it's like, dude, these are like crazy tiers of speed that we're talking about. So yeah, no, Minato is just like a different animal, and he just has like the raw firepower. Like, you know, we were talking about like Tobirama, like how he has to create these conditions. Minato has like multiple large scale moves. Like it's not an issue for him in any capacity. So, you know, we think Minato takes it pretty confidently.
Yeah. And to add to Minato a little bit, to really like solidify him here, a lot of people say that when Minato is like fighting in the war, he's mental nerfed, and then we can't say how strong he would be if he wasn't mental nerfed. But the thing is, we actually do have like a concrete gauge for this.
Yeah.
When he's mental nerfed in the beginning of the fight, he's like pretty relative to EMS Sasuke and KCM 1.5 Naruto. They're like able to pull off combos, and then he's running at Naruto. Naruto is able to react to his running and like extend a hand toward him and stuff like that. So they're pretty relative. And then when he like gets rid of that mental debuff, when Naruto actually like talks some sense into him, then he starts like keeping pace with KCM2 Sage mode Naruto. So if you want a gauge for how much stronger not like Prime Minato would be than mental nerf Minato, here's your answer.
The data book like refers to it as a daze, and they give like, to add to this, like literally they give like the exact moment like when Naruto fist bumps him and he thinks of Kushida, like he's broken out of it, just becomes like unholy like powerful. So it's like low-key dazed Minato versus Kabuto might be a better matchup, to be honest with you. But hey man, it's one
honestly
of those, yeah, honestly, I think that might be a more comparable matchup. But anyway, Kyuubi Minato, pretty confident W.
Moving on, we have a complicated character here, Kakashi. And we were actually debating before the video what version to use, because it's like, it's a pain in the ass either way.
It's like the same,
no matter
like,
what version we use.
It's the same mental hoops, and you know, I don't want to, like, neither of us want to repeat the same stuff we've said in previous videos. In other videos, it's annoying, and like, you know what I mean? So yeah, we continue. My bad. So I wanted to like add in.
The thing about Kakashi in the war is like he's constantly just changing power levels. Like 1 second he's like KCM Naruto level, another second he's like running in a dimension where Kaguya is struggling to stand up. So like, it's disgusting. So we're gonna be talking about Hokage Kakashi specifically here, since that's kind of the point of the video.
Yeah.
So the thing about Hokage Kakashi is that in the anime, he's actually able to like stalemate Kashin Koji in base, and like Koji actually like feels threatened enough to like run away, because like people say he might be holding back, but the thing is, he wants like some document from a library in Konoha. Kakashi intercepts him, and like Kashin Koji wants that document. So if he could, he would probably just like speed blitz Kakashi and like knock him out in one hit.
Yeah.
But like he couldn't do that. He was actually like scared for his like maybe not his life, because he still has like Sage Mode up his sleeve and stuff. But he's like, yeah, this is gonna cause enough of a ruckus in the village for people to notice I'm here. And I'm like actually gonna have to take time dealing with this. I just can't afford to do that. I'm getting out of here.
It's like Guy pulling up on Itachi and Kisame. It's like, okay, this is a fighter like I can't waste time dealing with, and like it's gonna just the byproduct of this fight is just like L for me. So yeah.
Yeah. So like Kakashi being able to do that to Kashin Koji, who later goes on to fight Jigen at 10%. Like I don't care what you say, 10% Jigen is still like a top tier in the Shippuden series, like 100%. I feel like even at 10%, like I don't want to get into Boruto scaling too much here, but like I feel like we can all agree that 10% Jigen is like wrecking Kabuto, no difficult. You know, Kakashi scaling to these people, he should also be pretty relative to the Kage in Boruto, who have crazy scaling of their own. So yeah, Kakashi's just pretty blatantly like blitzing and like probably purple lightning Kabuto. It's like the point where he just doesn't exist, like disintegrates his body with lightning.
Yeah, the purple lightning, like they talk about in the novel, like its official name is like Violent Bolt, but it's pretty potent too. Like not a lot of people bring this up, but like it literally causes like a thunderstorm, which is kind of crazy when you think about the fact that like Sasuke needed his fire style plus a Matarasu to like create those conditions, or like fire style from a perfect Susanoo, like. And, you know, maybe you think Sasuke could do it solo, whatever. But, like, the fact that, like, he's able to cause this off, like, lightning on his arm is kind of ridiculous. And it, like, amazes Tsuchikage and stuff like that. So, you know, there is a certain degree to where you argue, like, this is an extremely potent jutsu. Now, we don't know exactly. Like, the potency is a little, like, hazy, I will say. But we do also know Kakashi's stronger than, like, the feats he performed in the War Arc. Not against Kaguya, not against DMS. But, like, you can maybe argue with, like, peak Mangekyo Sharingan. So, stat-wise, he's pretty relevant here. It's just your personal opinion if you think he could withstand some of Kabuto's hacks, but stat wise he should have a pretty definitive advantage for him to just like kind of beat Kabuto down. It's just kind of like how you argue like he gets past the regen, or just like, you know, however that would go, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, maybe Kashin Koji blocked a punch from Ishiki and he couldn't, like, one-shot Kakashi, so Kakashi maybe punching Kabuto could just, like, blow him away.
You know what's crazy about that? Can we talk about this? This dude Kakashi, like, punches Obito in the Kamui dimension, right? And he draws blood from him. But this dude Obito will get a Rasengan in the back and be chilling. Someone tell me about this. Why does Kakashi got the meanest haymaker? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? I'm just
Bro, Kakashi uppercuts Obito in the gut, makes him bleed. KCM2 Naruto slams a Rasengan into his face. And doesn't even leave a mark.
It's so bad. Like, I'm like wondering what's going on. Like, I'm like, you know, and like it's just crazy. It's crazy. So Kakashi's one of those weird characters, but like if you go with like the peak Hokage Kakashi, he should be fine in this matchup. Maybe barring like he might struggle with Kabuto's regen, maybe some of his techniques, but he should just be honestly fine. And just should be able to like spam purple lightning and just take him down. Because even while fatigued, he could do like 2 of them and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, that should be entirely fine. Next up, we have Hashirama. Alive or Edo, I don't think it necessarily makes a difference at this point. But, you know,
yeah,
I'll say this. Hashirama versus Kabuto, you know, that sentence sounds funny. But he wipes, pretty low difficulty. Wood Dragon Suppression, Wooden Golem beats the bricks off Kabuto. He just, you know, Deity Gates, drops them on Kabuto. Kabuto's going to get, like, you know, he's going to get suppressed. And then Hashirama's going to come up and just, you know, do his thing. What that is, you tell me. But so that's pretty obvious. I feel like that shouldn't be too crazy. Now, what is more of an interesting matchup is Hashirama versus Kabuto with his Edo Tensei army. I think that's more of an interesting discussion because I think with Kabuto's Edo Tensei army, you could make a case that he's arguably top 5 strong, like pre 6 paths in Shippuden. I think you could make a case for that. Because he has the Edo
I would
Gokage,
agree.
he has Itachi, Nagato, gray-haired Nagato to be fair, but he also has the Akatsuki members, and it's like, okay, if all of these fighters are throwing their hacks out, like for example, right, let's say like Datara, C4s, while Nagato Bansho Tenin Hashirama, while Itachi runs in with the Totsuka Blade. Here comes Kabuto, because Kabuto can fight alongside his Edos. He just, can't control them. He comes in with like a Chakra Blade, like the third, like all this crazy stuff. It's like, bro, what? So it is like, I will say, I think it is kind of interesting to talk about. In which case, right, I definitely would see a situation to where like Hashirama would need to create wood clones to combat this or mitigate this. Bare minimum 25, because Madara did. But that is something he would need to do. In which case, a lot of these, it depends, right? Because like Hashirama's regen is so crazy that I can't see a lot of these lower level Edo Tensei taking him down, like any of the Edo Gokage. Even like Hanzo's poison, I can't necessarily see that. Like I would honestly see like Hashirama being, I don't want to say like fine in it, but like he's just always got answers. He has wide scale ninjutsu to mitigate this. Like he can use his paralyzing pollen to like paralyze the Edo Tensei, like all this crazy stuff while his clones wreak havoc. He can fight the battle of attrition. The problem is he can't seal them. Whereas the Edo Tensei actually do have kill options. Datara is one of those fighters. Itachi and Nagato are some of the other fighters. Who else might have something? I'm trying to necessarily think. I don't want to say like Gengetsu. Well, maybe Lord Mu could like sneak up on his back because he's like the no man.
Yeah, particle style.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff he can do. So there is a discussion to be had. Like you could make the argument. It's kind of like, I want to say like this is almost like its own video. I'm not gonna lie. Like this is like a subsection.
I feel like it is.
So it is kind of a cool topic. The chimp in me wants to just like the primal person in me wants to lean towards Hashirama. I will say, we were talking about this. For whatever reason, if Kabuto does get pressured in this situation and summons Madara, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So do you want to lead with this? Like I discussed this in another video. I'll go on record. I don't think Kabuto could have suppressed Madara's personality and forced him to like do whatever he wanted. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I can. So we were talking about this before the recording too. So first of all, Madara, when he just first appears, he like busts out of the coffin, unlike any other Edo Tensei. Then Kabuto specifically says, "You're not like the others. Like I've improved you. Like you're like the big guy. Like I took care of like making you like the best version of you.
He literally lost
be.
every Edo, Itachi, Nagato, everybody. He was losing these high level Edos. Doesn't care because he has Madara in the back. So there is a level of like, there's a level where he was like, all right, I'm getting ready to solo the war with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then Madara calls like the Edo Tensei user, like whoever he is, he calls them like juvenile and like childish. Like tell him that when he uses our forbidden jutsu, like make sure that he knows what he's doing, because like it's forbidden for a reason. I can just break out. And then he like weaves the hand signs. He also has Hashirama cells. And Hashirama is the same guy who can like just break out of Edo Tensei whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Because the Edo Tensei is based off like Zetsu cells and stuff, which are based off Hashirama cells. So like it's kind of confusing, but Madara should just be able to do to Kabuto what Hashirama was said to be able to do to Orochimaru when he revived him. So I feel like it's a pretty
I'm gonna add to
like
this too.
cut and dry.
Yeah, Tobirama also thought that he was gonna flex out of Orochimaru's jutsu as well before he knew about the Zetsu bases. Like he was like, you fucked up. I'm almost at full strength. I'm out of here. I'm gone. You know what I mean? So there is an implication that like these fighters, when brought back to like their full power, or near it, can like flex out of the jutsu. It's only when like the base is discussed. And I know some people might get into like Orochimaru's Edo Tensei versus Kabuto's, but Orochimaru actually does absorb a lot of intel from Kabuto. Like he pretty much like fully understands the war. He understands everything. So you could actually make the argument like Orochimaru might have absorbed how Kabuto like perfected the Edo Tensei and improved upon it, which I also think is interesting because he absorbs quite a bit from him. So with all that in mind, I feel like it's pretty fair to say that Madara can break out of it. I know he did it when Kabuto was distracted, but still, I don't think Kabuto or I don't think Madara helps Kabuto at any capacity. He's really gonna sit down and wait for Hashirama to be done. That's extremely in character. There's literally the Ten Tails rampaging, the Shinobi Alliance, and like he literally just waits for Hashirama to be done. He's like, all right, I'm gonna just chill here. So I think
he just doesn't care.
He does not
he's
care.
like, I'm waiting for my for the guy to come and so I can fight him. Like,
I don't think he'd help
He just
Hashirama.
doesn't care.
I don't think that's like I don't think he would go as far to help him, but I think he would literally just be patient and let him chill out because that's kind of what he does. I will say a lot of the Edo Tensei's better win cons are if Hashirama starts in close proximity. Because if he starts far away, Shinsu Senju just absolutely annihilates Kabuto and like all of the Edo Tensei instantly. But if they do start closer range, C4 is a possibility. C0 or anything like that doesn't make a difference about Hashirama because his like wood style was like tanking Bijou bombs, which are greater than C0. So that's not really too much of an issue. Like even like the wood style like defenses he has. Bansho Tenin to Totsuka Blade could be something, but again, you kind of have to argue that. And even then, like we've seen users initiate techniques as they're getting Bansho Tenin, like Naruto, so it might not even be foolproof. Itachi might be an interesting one, but realistically, like I'll say this. I think it's possible for the Edo Tensei army plus Kabuto, especially like if he unleashes some of like his paralyzing jutsu, but like more often than not, Hashirama's just gonna hop up on these wooden structures and be so far away from like, you know, because for example, Datara stuff has range. He's gonna be so far away from these fighters and just unleash these like unreal levels of like technique from so far away that they're just not gonna be able to stop him. You know what I mean?
yeah. And even if you say like he's getting jumped, he's getting like pulled into the Totsuka Blade, he could just clap his hands together and just like hundreds of trees could just like
Instant
pop out of the
sage mode.
ground, like
yeah.
destroy the Susanoo, like disrupt the Totsuka Blade's trajectory, whatever. Like he can definitely pull off a get out of jail free card basically with his jutsu.
Yeah.
And he might even just be able to like chakra flex a lot of the hacks away, because like when Tobirama does it, everyone gets like scared, like Tsugetsu's melting. And he wasn't melting in the presence of the Raikage or like anybody else that he faced up until that point, including like people like Kisame too. Hashirama flexing can just dick Tobirama down and like make him like submit instantly. Like, okay, brother, I'm listening to you. I'm not messing with you. So like,
I'll put it like this. Like Kabuto was like for the whole series #1 glazer for Orochimaru. The glazing was crazy. Dude was on his meat the entire series, right? Orochimaru's exposed to Tobirama, or not Tobirama, Hashirama, and he's like, bro, it's an honor. It's an honor to be called solid by you. And it's like, so then you got Orochimaru just starts glazing Hashirama, and it's like, okay, like if we go up the glaze meter here, like there is a pretty distinct like narrative level to this. So you know, up the glaze scaling, that should be pretty clear. But more often, you know, I think that's more of a fun matchup. But like, you know, base to base, like Hashirama wipes. Obviously, that's just our attempt to make that matchup more interesting. And then like last up, you would.
Well, actually, Kabuto knows Madara exists.
No.
And he says he's the closest thing to the Sage of Six Paths currently existing in the world.
Oh my god.
And he knows the Jubi is out too. Like the Jubi is. Oh no, wait, the Jubi isn't there yet.
No.
Sorry. Even my BS arguments don't hold up.
it's like I'll put this also for people who say that, like that also does tie into like the hypocrisy of Kabuto's character, because he'll like make these claims which other characters have claimed or been like touted as like being like the next coming of the Sage of Six Paths, and he's still wearing glasses, which is like, you know, that's literally the whole deal of the fight. Like Itachi's literally pointing out the hypocrisy in what Kabuto's doing. So it's like, you know, he's not. It's just one of those like self-flex moments. Like he literally, like the point of Kabuto, he's like, I'm gonna keep adding to myself. With, you know, like Sakon's jutsu. He's like, I'm gonna keep adding to myself, and he's like, I'm gonna absorb you too as well until I get to the Sage of Six Paths. Like I'm the closest thing. So it's like, you know, he's not the closest thing to the Sage of Six Paths, but he, you know, you could argue like in some reality where he kept absorbing these dudes, like he would get pretty close, because he, you know, that's Hashirama versus Kabuto, and then we have adult Naruto versus Kabuto, which is like, I mean, he's a base Naruto victim. What else do you want to say? Like realistically, like there's not. Adult Naruto victimizes, no real discussion to be had. So yeah, that's the video. Kabuto, after looking at this, he does pretty well in the Hokage Gauntlet. The only ones I will say are debatable are possibly Alive Tobirama, maybe Alive Kakashi, or Hokage Kakashi, depending on how you scale him. Or maybe you disagree with us and you go with a different interpretation. But other than that, I feel like it's pretty cemented who he can take down. Very impressive. It's just, just again, like all the characters we kind of talked about are like above him in terms of like the pre-six paths characters who are like strongest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the fact that he can take down like 3 Hokage, which the Hokage is often considered to be like the strongest Kage, like that speaks volumes about Kabuto's power. Like I feel like he could beat the regular Akatsuki pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like in terms of a 1v1 matchups, like he could run the Akatsuki gauntlet no problem if it's like the regular Akatsuki.
Yeah.
So like the fact that he can take down 3 Kage is already pretty impressive. Like
Yeah.
3 Hokage level fighters.
I've made the argument, like I have a video like that. He's one of those fighters you could talk about soloing the 5 Kage. Like he's up there in terms of like strength to where like that's a discussion to be had. So
yeah.
I don't think it's like it's cemented, but I just think it's an interesting discussion. So that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. It's a long one. If you did, go subscribe to Satori. Check him out. Does great stuff. We might have a video on his channel in the near future. Who knows? But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Catch you next time.